handle cross-entropy analysis of brain responses expressed towards virtual sexual stimuli, and it's a pilot study. This study is part of my PhD student thesis, Mathieu Brideau-Duquette. So, for a brief overview, the research problem is, why are we investigating immersive cybersexuality? As for the methodology, we will talk about virtual reality, sexual plethysmography, QEEG, which is quantitative encephalography, and cross-entropy. The results will show that we found a higher volume of cross-entropy exchanges in frontal alpha when processing sexual content. And the discussion will be about a more sustained synchronization process between brain regions involved in sexual arousal. And we will conclude with diverse applications of these results and some acknowledgements. Okay, according to recent data, the global virtual reality market was valued at 21.83 billion in 2021 and is expected to grow at a compound annual rate of 15% from 2022 to 2030. It's a big market, as you all know. The metaverse market size, meanwhile, was estimated to be around 61.8 billion in 2022 and is projected to reach 426.9 billion in 2027, which growing at a compound annual growth rate of 47.2. It's major. And furthermore, a report from Digital Adult Content predicted in 2021 that the VR adult content market would grow from 716 million in 2021 to 19 billion in 2026, indicating that the most recent spikes that we just saw during the pandemics may just be the beginning of an increasingly mainstream use for VR technology in cybersexuality. So, from a model standpoint, whether we want it or not, the impact of immersive virtual reality uses for sexual purposes need to be investigated, because sexual arousal is one of the strongest sources of human motivation, because there are, of course, possible deleterious psychological effects of this kind of use, and also because it's a matter of cybersecurity. Our team my team has been investigated this topic since 2001, in fact, and it was mainly within the context of the uses of VR in forensic psychology. As for the psychophysiology, and because it's the main topic of this discussion for me today, we know that electroencephalography correlates of interest in appetitive stimuli, and especially for sexual interest and arousal can be in fact associated with alpha asymmetry in the frontal area of the brain as measured with EEG. And we also know that there's a preponderance of left hemisphere activation over the right one that appears to be an index of cerebral sexual arousal. That's what we got from the research of Nicole Prowse in the United States, and also from my own team in Canada, Quebec. So the question here is there a way to quantify brain synchronization dynamic during sexual arousal as experienced in virtual immersion? And is EEG dynamic cross-entropy a good candidate for the job? So we want to see how could we assess or measure the volume of exchange between the brain regions, the brain areas involved in sexual arousal during virtual immersion with sexual content. So the main hypothesis here is that a higher volume of EEG cross-entropy exchanges in frontal alpha is expected during sexual arousal experience while interacting with virtual sexual content compared to a neutral one. So we relied on a simple apparatus for the experimental procedure. We enrolled 10 10 healthy heterosexual males, and we compared their reaction into intra-subject experimental conditions. The first condition was immersion with a neutral character. As you can see here, it's like an android character that was moving around a empty room, and we compared, the reaction of the participants, the 10 healthy heterosexual adult males, with an immersion with an idiosyncratic preferred sexual avatar. That is an avatar that was a female adult in this case, and all this was experienced in fact in with the HTC Vive Pro Eye. We were recording the eye tracking, the eye movements, but for this presentation I will only rely on penile plethysmography and EEG. What is penile plethysmography? It's a tool that we use routinely in forensic psychiatry. It is meant to measure sexual tumescence with a mercury and rubber strain gauge that is put around the shaft of the penis of the person that is assessed in the lab. Here you have a typical responses with the neutral android character, and here you see a nice rising slope with the avatar who is embodied the sexually preferred female character for the participants. As for the EEG, we used a 30 active electrode EEG cap from Brain Vision. It's a 1020 system, and specifically we looked for this presentation. I present what is about the FP1 and FP2 part of the frontal area of the brain. Of course, we looked at more areas, but for this presentation, I rely solely on the FP1 and FP2. We bandpass filtered these data to obtain the alpha, the beta, and the SMR frequency. So you can see here the bandpass filter EEG data for FP1, FP2, with the neutral avatar and the sexual avatar for one typical participants. As for the computing of the data, to compute the EEG cross entropy, we used the dynamic cross entropy. It's a technique developed by Ao and Vidal Rodriguez in 2017. What is cross entropy? It's a measure of complexity related to transition to chaos in case of multi-dimensional time series. In our case, of course, the time series were FP1 and FP2 measured in the brain area cited in the frontal part of the brain. So this dynamic cross entropy technique is helping us to compare patterns of a certain length and identify similar patterns within a certain tolerance. The result that we obtain is a logarithmic ratio of the number of matches for patterns of length m to those of length m plus 1 within the same tolerance range, which r. So for each data j of p time series, dynamic cross entropy is computed as the inverse of all sample entropy. So it's a measure of entropy, but it's the exchange of entropy information between two time series in our case, so between FP1 and FP2. Here we have examples of these dynamic cross entropy signals for the android neutral character and for the sexual character. In order to compare volumes of cross entropy exchanges between FP1 and FP2 during immersion with the neutral and the sexual avatar, we computed the area under the curve for each signal in each selected frequency. So we obtain a volume of dynamic cross entropy signals. And then we use this measure as a dependent variables in a repeated measures MANOVA, which is multivariate analysis of variance, with stimuli and frequency as factors. So stimuli is, of course, neutral and sexual avatars, and frequency is alpha, beta, and sensory motoric rhythm. As for the results, we found without any surprise that the sexual avatar prompted a significantly stronger sexual response in the participants. So that was, in fact, only a control measure to make sure that we had something to compare for the EEG, the dynamic cross entropy area under the curve. And indeed, using the MANOVA, we found significant effects for stimuli, frequency, as well as for interaction between stimuli and frequency. So we found that all these factors were and their interaction were highly significant with strong effect sizes, especially for the interaction. And when we use a simple t-test to compare further the conditions, we found that the exchange of in fact the volume of cross entropy was significantly higher during the immersion with the preferred sexual avatar in alpha and in beta, but not in SMR. And in alpha, it was the strongest of the volume of exchange. So what we found is a significant entropic exchanges in frontal area that is between FP1 and FP2. We found a higher volume of cross entropy exchanges when processing sexual compared to neutral content. So there's something happening differently when the participants were immersed with sexual content compared to neutral content. And this result with sexual stimuli seems to be quite specific to alpha, less to beta, and not at all to SMR. And as noticed earlier, there's a strong effect size in explaining the phenomenon. So this can possibly mean that there is a more sustained dynamic synchronization process between these brain regions as activation polarizes in the left hemisphere to the detriment of the right, as explained at the outset. There is something happening during sexual arousal that seems to be like an asymmetry in the frontal area. And we think that we are tapping into the dynamics of exchange of this process. So it's possibly a nonlinear process indicative of a phase transition towards sexual involvement in virtual immersion. Also, it seems that dynamic cross entropy is potentially a good candidate to quantify brain synchronization dynamics during sexual arousal as experienced in virtual immersion. Of course, there are limits to this study. It's a pilot study. It's a methodological proof of concept for dynamic cross entropy. We only presented a subsample here. We expect to have more than 70 participants, male and females. It will be quite interesting to compare male and female with these measures. I didn't talk about female sexual plethysmography. That may be for another presentation. Dynamic cross entropy needs to be also as a limit. Dynamic cross entropy needs to be pitted against standard measures of brain asymmetry. So I only presented here the dynamic cross entropy, but of course there are other more standard measure that we should present. And another limit is that the full range of brain areas involved in sexual arousal experience with virtual content are still to be probed. So we'll look at other area of the brain. We presented in that conference only the frontal area of the brain because it's the one that was targeted from the theory that we found in the literature, of course. To conclude, these are interesting, let's say, promising results that could be applied to better understand cybersexuality. There are, of course, for us, potential uses in forensic psychiatry in the assessment of sex offenders, because nowadays we use essentially penile plethysmography to assess deviant sexual profiles in pedophiles and rapists and other sex offenders. And if we could use only EEG instead of penile plethysmography, that could be much more simple to be used in correctional facility or psychiatric hospital. And finally, these results are quite interesting in developing a VR-mediated brain-computer interface to tap into sexual motivation to animate virtual content. So that could lead to a new way to treat sexual problems. So if you want to have more information about this research, you can contact me at my email address that you can find here. Special thanks to Cyrus Cantapo, a data analyst that we work with, and we've been sponsored by various agencies in Canada. Thank you very much.
Invisible.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. So, hey everyone, I'm Utkarsh Mahajan. I'm currently pursuing my Bachelor's of Computer Science Engineering from just give me a moment. Okay, so I'm currently pursuing my Bachelor's of Engineering in Computer Science Engineering from Chandigarh. So this is my LinkedIn, this is my email. You can connect to me if you want. Okay, so I wrote a research paper on fire detection and reporting using IoT. Let's start with what we did. So fire detection is an important aspect of life. Like we can save a lot of lives by automating this. We can automate the fire detection system and the reporting tools using the IoT. So what's IoT? IoT is Internet of Things. It's basically a network of different devices. It could be your mobile phone, it could be your PC, a sensor, even your light bulb or your AC or your fan. Like for example, if I want to automate my fan, so when I come inside the room, the fan will automatically turn on. And when I leave the room, it's automatically gonna turn off. So what was the problem statement on which we worked? We worked on detecting and reporting fires using a network of interconnected sensors and devices. These sensors are like smoke sensors, heat sensors, UV rays, infrared ray sensors. And why do we need it? So this is the data of the United States. I could not find any data of India, so I found the data of United States. So a fire department responds to a fire every 23 seconds. And one home structure fire was reported every 93 seconds. One home fire related injury occurred every 47 minutes. One home fire related death occurs every 308 hours, 8 minutes, sorry. It means we can save countless number of lives. In 2021 alone, almost 4,000 people died and almost 15,000 people suffered injuries because of these fire accidents. Most of them could be avoided if we just notify the people in the right time. This is a graph. This is the data. So the light blue line here, it represents the number of fire accidents. It includes fire accidents at workplace as well as homes and restaurants and other places. And the dark green line, it represents the fire accident, the death of people at home, like people who died at home because of fire accidents. Although this graph shows that the accidents have reduced a lot, but still we have a long way to go. And this outlier thing, this dark blue line, it represents 9/11. And since they all are considered as the casualty of fire accident. So detection of fire, it is really important if we could detect the fire as soon as possible. As soon as something catches fire, if we can detect that and report that to the concerned authorities, maybe they can deal with it, maybe they can extinguish it in time without any damage being done. So we can use smoke detector sensors, heat detector sensors, UV or IR radiation sensors, and we use real-time monitoring techniques. So what does it mean? It basically means as soon as something catches fire at your home, it's directly gonna be sent to the cloud where they will process it and report the concerned authority. They're even gonna notify your neighbor that okay, there is a mouse on fire in your neighborhood. So they can also take preventive measures. And implementation of various techniques. We used a lot of techniques. We used smoke sensors and we connected fire alarms with them, UV sensors and heat detectors and smoke alarms. We used RFID. RFID is basically radio frequency identification. It's like tracking an object using radio waves. So we tracked objects when they caught fire using radio waves and it worked. We were able to detect fires at a really early stage and we prevented them from spreading. So what is the conclusion? What did we do? We tried to focus on early detection of fires and then reporting that incident to as many people as possible around the place so they could take preventive measures. You could be sleeping at your home and you will be notified by a call that yeah, something in your kitchen has caught fire. You can go and investigate the thing. So what are the future scope? So we're gonna build a prototype on this. We're gonna implement this and test this in at a large scale, and then we're gonna implement it in we're gonna do the mass implementation. We're gonna implement it in a lot of places, and then we're gonna release it as a software as well as a hardware. That was all from my side. Thank you. If you have any further queries, you can contact me.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharan, and my teammates are Lokesh, Siddharth, and Lakshmi Reddy. We are in our 8th semester of our BTech in TS University from Bangalore. We are studying computer science engineering. Our research topic is named as lip movement detection and word identification. I just want to close this actually. Yeah. So coming to our contents, we have introduction, objective, methodology, results and conclusion, and references. Coming to introduction. So what is lip reading? Lip reading is basically the communication skill which people, which enables individuals to actually understand what the other person speaking based on just the visual cues like, the lip movements, everything. It's usually used by the hearing impaired individuals who have faced difficulty in trying to understand what the other person is speaking. What makes it even harder is when it comes to regional languages, like for example, Kannada, Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, and all these languages. It just narrows down to such an extent that there are not a lot of lip readers available for them, or it's hard for those individuals to incorporate this skill as well. So what we plan to do is that we built an AI model, a machine learning model, which makes it easier for them to understand. If you look at the statistics, we can see that the lip reading accuracy of an average individual human being is quite low. It's approximately around 49%. So our main objective of this research was to be able to identify the words spoken by the person who's speaking by taking their video and analyzing what the person says and getting a higher lip reading accuracy as compared to the conventional humans understanding what it's saying. Okay, moving to the methodology. Okay, so coming to the data collection, what we chose, since we're based off Bangalore and we see a lot of deaf people around us and they find it hard to understand this, we took Kannada as our regional language, and we collected the samples of around 300 individual speakers speaking these 11 words as shown in the table. These are the basic words which we chose so that these becomes easy for people to talk with the localites, say the auto rickshaw person or any vendor as such. So for the camera, we used a Nikon DSLR. So it could have a good frame rate. So we chose 1080p at 60 FPS to get the best out of the video. What we did was we removed the audio, since we do not want audio. Sometimes when you're looking at a video, a Kannada video, let's say, and there are a lot of things you cannot hear. So instead of having an audio, we thought, okay, we'll just take the video, and the video was split into frames. Each frame was cropped into the lip and the face. So as shown here in the pictures, the left one shows only the face cropped out and the right shows only the lips cropped out. And this was put to a 6x6 image matrix. This image matrix was done in such a way that we took the average number of frames available of where the main data is. You see the left and right of the videos or the video frames were just redundant, as they were just a person waiting to speak, right? So the middle data was taken there, and approximately 36 images were found to be the mean. So we took a 6x6 matrix to be fed into our CNN model, which is VGG based. Yes, so these matrices are fed to two separate CNN models. As we can see in the flow chart here, there's the video set load data, and then there is pre-processing. The pre-processing is where we find out all the mean number of frames, and then if this lesser number of frames, we add more frames in the center where the data is rich, and then if it is less, we remove data from the edges, so the not much data is lost for us. So these two models go to the feature extraction and then splits into two different CNN models. One takes only the face image and the other takes the lip image. And then it goes to analysis, and then it identifies the word spoken, and then it's combined using an ensemble to get the final word prediction. What we found in part of our results was the fact that you can see in the graphs here, the accuracy for training and the accuracy for test data set was pretty high. It's coming approximately up to about 89%. And you can also see the fact that there's quite a bit of an the sum of overfitting happening, which is actually accounted for because of the fact that the number of the amount of data we had was quite less. Since this was our personal project from college, as also as part of our a final capstone project, the amount of time we had was quite less. And even though this was overfitting, we came up to an approximation of about 89%. That is significantly larger than most of the humans able to predict the data. From this, we can conclude that we were able to finally predict and get to know what the word was spoken. Our future work includes incorporating a larger data set. We're actually on board with talking to one of the government organizations which for the deaf and dumb to get a larger data set. Alongside that, we also want to incorporate a much more Indian regional languages for starters, so that when this model comes out, it will be very helpful for a lot of hearing impaired people, audio impaired individuals. And then these are the references which we used. These are actually the primary references which we found very useful for us. The thing about this regional language base is that when it comes to Kannada as a language, there is hardly any research done being on the lip reading part. It is because if you see, English is a very commonly used language, and there are a lot of models. But when it comes to regional languages, especially the southern India of languages, you have Tamil, Telugu, Kannada. They have a lot of facial expressions involved in each way you say, which is why we needed two different models, as shown here. Two different models. One to show the entire movement of your cheeks, and then your chin movements and all those things for the face. And then when it comes to the lips, there are different specific pronunciations when you say a word. For example, in this word, the 11th word, madhyana, right? The movement of lips is, even though it is similar to a few other words, we can take the lost data from the face, which is why we had to go with the two models. And this was the output we received. And we're still working on how to make this better. And yep, these are our references.
So good afternoon to everyone. Myself, Varsha Khandekar. I am a research scholar from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj University, Navi Mumbai, Maharashtra, India. Under the guidance of Dr. Praveen Gupta ma'am, I am doing my research for black hole denial of service attack analysis and detection using an intrusion detection system. These are the outlines of my presentation. It includes introduction, aims and objectives, Manet routing protocol AODV, the overview of black hole node, literature review, proposed work, performance analysis, conclusion, and references. So wireless ad hoc network. What exactly wireless ad hoc network? Basically, it is a collection of nodes. The nodes can move free and form a temporary ad hoc network. In wireless sensor network, one of the type is the mobile ad hoc network, where the nodes can participate for communication, and these nodes are nothing but the mobile nodes. As we know that the mobile nodes randomly changing its location position, so it's a very big challenge for Manet network. It is a decentralized network, because decentralized means no one is there, the centralized one, who will monitor or controlling this network. Then dynamic topology is there, because these mobile nodes, due to the mobility feature of mobile nodes, the network position, the networks are always changing. The topology is always changing, because the nodes mobility feature changing the location of mobile nodes. So dynamic topology is used in Manet network. Now, as compared to the wired network, the limited bandwidth is used in wireless network. The power constraint nodes are used. These mobile nodes are energy consumption nodes are used. So these are the power constraint nodes. The multi-hop communication takes place for performing the communication by means of intermediate nodes. So because of all these things, Any node can leave a network and join a network. So more chances of transmission errors are there and more chances of packet loss is there. So definitely it will be, there is a need to give a security to this kind of network, as well as there is a need to maintain the quality of service. We know that the security, when we are trying to increase the security, then definitely the quality of service somewhere degraded. I can give the example of this. Nowadays, we are using the Gmail accounts. If I want to log in for that Gmail account from other devices, then for that purpose, we are having now two-way authentication processes included. So because of that two-way authentication, the security is increased. But if suppose for that two-way authentication, I need to use my original mobile phone or original system so to approve that login process. So if that original mobile phone or the system is not available with me, then that time definitely my quality is reduced because I'm not able to use my Gmail account. So when we are trying to increase the security, definitely the quality of service get degrades. So in a wireless sensor network also, if we are trying to increase the security, the quality will get degraded. But in my research work, we are trying to maintain the quality also, as well as we are improving the security. So with this, my aim is to design and implement efficient routing in secure environment for multiple attacks on MANET. And for this, the objectives are to review and study various security issues present in wireless sensor network, to identify and simulate different types of attacks in wireless network, design and implementation of soft computing approach mode of transmission of packet by introducing malicious nodes in the network, design and implement a security solution for MANET for various kinds of attacks, investigate and analyze the new attack on MANET and propose a runtime solution for it, as well as validate the result using existing security approach. So in MANET, basically, there are three types of protocols are used. One is the proactive, second is reactive, and the third one is hybrid. In proactive protocol, initially the route table, the routing table will be formed, and that routing table will be shared from source to destination to all the intermediate nodes. The second one is the reactive one. Based on the demand, once this communication is established or there is a demand of communication, based on that, the routing table will be formed, and the routing table is need to be updated randomly whenever any new connection established. So in case of MANET routing protocol, we are using this AODV, that is on-demand distance, ad hoc on-demand distance vector routing protocol. This is the reactive one. Based on a demand, we are establishing the communication and we are changing the routing table. It having the lower overhead cost. It also maintains the routes in the network that are necessary at the time of communication. This is the working of AODV protocol. Suppose this is the source and this is the destination. So initially, in a routing, basically two steps are carried out. One is the route discovery and second is route maintenance. This route discovery is carried out by means of two messages. One is the route request packet and the second one is the route reply packet. Initially, when the communication established, initially the route request will be sent from source to destination with the help of intermediate nodes. So this route request is the broadcasted one, because this route request is broadcasted to multiple intermediate nodes. Now through this source node, the node B is connected and node C is connected. So route request will be sent to next intermediate nodes B as well as to C. That's why route request packet is the broadcast one. And in a reply, that particular node need to send the route reply packet, that is RREP. This is the unicast one. This is not the broadcast one. So by means of this route request and route request packet and the route reply packet, the route discovery will be executed. Second one is the route maintenance. In route maintenance, if there is a link breakage, as I said that this mobile nodes are nothing but the nodes which are taking the part in a communication. So if there is a link breakage, then in that case, the error message sends to all the neighbor nodes. So for that, the route error packet, that RERR, is sent to the next intermediate nodes. So the overview of black hole attack. This black hole attack, how it is established, see, suppose this is the source and the destination. So from
performances in Andhra Pradesh are based on, they sing the Ramayana, episodes from the Ramayana. They sing about 6 episodes. They have divided the Ramayana into 6 parts and they sing those 6 parts. So my presentation is not based on the Ramayana themes, but the comic characters that I just showed you, They provide, they are, they are included in all the Ramayana episodes. So what they do and the grammar of folk humor is something that I'm going to discuss. So let me just read the paper. Proposes to study elements of the carnivalesque in the shadow puppetry tradition of Andhra Pradesh. The paper is based on Ranganatha Ramayanamu, which is a Telugu Ramayanamu. So they have the performers live in a village called Nimalakunta in Andhra Pradesh. So they have these episodes, which each episode lasting for about 5-6 hours. So these episodes are Sundarakandam, Sati Sulochana, Lakshmana Murcha, Mairavana Charitra, Kishkinda Kanda, Indrajit Yuddhamu, and Ravanavadha. So from these episodes, I have recorded the paper is based on the comic episodes from the Sundarakanda. So the recording, they generally make these performances on several occasions, on any important occasion, whether religious or non-religious. So this was recorded on 31st of December evening. So these characters, the whole rendition of the episode is interspersed with comic interludes involving characters. So I have recorded Sundarakanda. Well, I have recorded other episodes also, but the present paper is based on Sundarakanda. So these the comic episodes involve a couple of characters known as Bangaraka, Juttupoligadu, Tippadu, Lankini, and Hanuman. Hanuman is not a comic character, but he indulges with them at some point of time. So their role in the entire performance, as well as characterization, including clothing, language, and humor, will be studied in this paper as elements of the carnivalesque. The present paper takes these comic episodes from the classical theme of the Ramayana and offers a description of the culture of folk humor. So mainly the paper studies the grammar of folk humor with the help of Bakhtinian theory of the carnivalesque from Rebellious and His World, or from, which is based on Rebellious's works, Pantagruel and Gargantua. So some of those, how he understood, how Bakhtin understands Rebellious and his place in the French literary world, and by extension to all other literary traditions. So all the images in the comic characters belong to folk carnival humor. Manifestations of folk humor can be found in the interludes, which are introduced as comic relief to the audience from the serious and sober theme of the Sundarakanda. So that's the contrast. The shadow puppeteers perform only, Ramayana and not the Mahabharata. Since shadow puppetry is a performatory tradition, there needs to be a visual effect, and since it is a folk tradition, it becomes necessary to have these comic interludes in order to attract the audiences, also to sustain the interest of the spectators in a 6-hour-long performance. So if the comic characters are introduced precisely to sustain the interest of the performance in the audience. The Ramayana is the sacred text of the Hindus. Well, yeah, the legacy of the Ramayana in oral tradition must have been existing, for all along. Whereas the comic characters have nothing to do with the Ramayana. They don't interact with the Ramayana characters. They are local people as representation, who are represented on the puppetry theater. Most often it is performed in villages in front of temples, of the local deities, or in any marketplace, in an open place. The today's performance, the performance that I've recorded was also done in the village square in V Kotakota village of Anantapur district. So what makes the performance unique is its comic relief episodes. The puppetry shadows claim that they have been performing the art since the days of the Vijayanagara Emperor Krishnadeva. But Ananda Kumaraswamy gives us that, puppets in various forms have been in existence or have had for references in Panini's Mahabhasha. From there onwards, he traces the history of the shadow puppetry. The first shadow puppetry may not have been exactly puppetry, but it must have been a picture with just the puppet. So Kumaraswamy explains the historical progression of from pictures to shadow puppetry in his article called The Picture Showman, which was published in Historical Quarterly 1929. So this is the Bakhtinian theory. So this is the background of the shadow puppetry, thing. And the Bakhtinian theory of what is carnivalesque. The first comic relief is analyzed in detail to study the elements of folk humor involving the characters of Bangaraka, Jutupoligadu, and Tippudu. In fact, the comic characters are a representation of the audience within the play, presenting and watching the story of the Ramayana along with the audience. The comic characters' role and their visual appeal and grammar. So this is what is going to be analyzed. Bakhtinian theory of the carnivalesque will help us understand the total nature of the grammar of folk humor, and the in the context of European, in the European context. But we are going to extend the theory to understand shadow puppetry tradition in India also. Indian performatory traditions like plays and prahasanas, comic relief is provided by a character named Vidushaka. Well, that's the Indian tradition. In the plays and dramas of Sanskrit drama, it is the Vidushaka, or in other languages in India also. So who plays the role of giving comic relief to the audience? Well, in fact, shadow puppetry predates the Sanskrit play. So the comic characters that we see are what predecessors even to the comic characters in Sanskrit plays, Vidushaka. So the principal categories of folk humor, according to Bakhtin: ritual spectacle, carnival pageants, comic show of the shows of the marketplace, comic verbal compositions, parodies of both oral and written in Latin and in vernacular, various genres of Billingsgate, curses, oaths, popular blazons. Let's examine each of these elements in the context of the shadow puppetry performance. So the theme of the Ramayana does not include, does not allow for these non-serious and, curses and oaths and popular blazons, or nor does it allow for any of these. Billingsgate is marketplace. So as a contrast to that, folk humor is developed by these puppeteers on their own. For playing the, for the Ramayana theme, they have taken from Ranganatha Ramayanam, and the songs that they sing are from the main text of the Ranganatha Ramayanam. Whereas for the comic compositions, they come up with the compositions on their own. So ritual spectacle includes, this is the definition of ritual spectacle: processions, plays, and liturgical celebrations. Some characteristics of the ritual spectacle of the show or the puppetry performance are discussed here. The performance of the shadow puppetry indeed can be put up in any place like a marketplace, open air village squares. Thus, it gets licensed to use the open air village squares because it gets licensed to use language and spectacle that they present. It gives them a protection from being censored for taking liberties with the accepted morals and norms of the society and religion. So the performance begins with an announcement, which we just saw, and an advisory that shadow puppetry must be watched even by walking a distance of 90 amadas. So he basically, in the announcement at the beginning, invites all the children, elders of the village, women, and for the night show. Tolbumlata is performed for housewarming. Okay, so all these are the occasions on which it is performed. Lord Ganesha is invoked because it's the theme of, he's considered the Lord of all impediments. So he's invoked so that there's no impediment for the performance. Because it's the theme of the Ramayana. But for the comic episodes, there is they sing a different song. They not the invocation offered at the beginning. They invite the comic characters with a different funny offering. That is, we'll give you there's a special type of thorn which is found in grass. It is called palleru thorns, and they offer stale food as an invitation as a invocation to the comic characters. The puppets' visual effects like clothes, color, and the artistic way of making is strikingly attractive and draws the attention of the spectator with its garish tones attached to the clothes of the women, while the men are presented as low-caste men in dark earthy shades. Tippudu, one of the buffoons, is even handicapped. He is presented as someone without the waist portion. So he's just crawling on the ground. As a puppet, it's just shown as crawling on the ground. Thus, these puppet characters serve as a total antithesis to the classical characters of Sita, Rama, and Saumitri. The dressing, the comic characters, dressing is also what is considered improper for presentation of a high theme like the Ramayana. Juttupoligadu is dressed like any other low-caste peasant of the region. He's dark complexioned, not like the Neelamegha Shama of Rama. Rama is also dark complexioned, but his color is described as Neelamegha Shama, like the cloud. He's blue, not black. Both are dark, yet he is more earthy, while Rama is elevated. Bangaraka is definitely not, the female character's name is Bangaraka. She is not dressed like the peasant women of the region, but she is one among them, low caste women, because the kind of jokes that these men exchange with her are obscene and almost bordering on the obscene and vulgar. So she looks and talks like them, but her dressing panders to the taste of the gallery audiences. She talks like them because one of the village women is lending voice for the puppet called Bangaraka. So the puppeteers make the familiar theme of the Ramayana enjoyable, indulgent, and at the same time reverential. These characters, the comic characters, are totally irreverent to each other, and in the way that way bring in the worldly wisdom of their own everyday affairs. So in discarding the legacy of the grotesque, in describing the elements of the grotesque in European context, Bakhtin observes they were closely related to all the forms of degradation inherited from grotesque realism. So that's the context in which the European, comic characters have evolved, or the carnivalesque, the element of the carnivalesque. Carnivalesque basically means by an atmosphere which brings out the brings in the festive environment in which there are no rules and so on and so forth. So the audience get involved with the play. Okay, visual spectacle to the audience and the oil lamp protection of the screen. Okay, so the puppet Lankini is presented as a huge puppet. Okay, this goes on, and I don't know if I still have the time. I started at 3:15. So, sir, do I have time? Some one or 2 minutes to conclude?
Yeah, you can conclude by 2 minutes.
Okay, so this is the conclusion. The comic relief stands as a bridge between the past and present, the way people spoke and lived for 1,000 years and what is going to come. Modern notions of humor are contaminated by film bourgeoisie humor, whereas folk humor draws from the life itself and therefore spontaneous. The elements of the comedy are drawn from life itself. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful.
Where is it gone?
Thank you for your presentation.
Okay, sir. I can't see this. I cannot see the Zoom link.
Good afternoon. My name is Mariam Saleh Jani from the University of Sharjah, a master's student. Today's presentation will be a little bit different. It is part of the master defense, and we'll be talking about the development for urban water sustainability, a literature review. Okay. The presentation goes as follows: a brief introduction, procedure, results and discussions, and finally the conclusions. First of all, the Earth regenerative capacities and renewable resources are limited. Climate change and climate variabilities are expected to cause a significant increase in the water scarcity issues within the coming decades. The water availabilities in urban areas is often imbalanced by the natural and anthropogenic factors. When assessing a region's water resources availabilities, two factors need to be considered, which is the physical scarcities and the economic scarcities. The physical scarcities caused by the lack of the recharge and service and groundwater resources, while the economic result from the inadequate water service, mainly governance and policies. To achieve a sustainable development, sustainable development is the act of satisfying the current need while simultaneously ensuring the future generation needs are met. The urban water sustainabilities require integrating, interacting, co-involving economic, social, physical, and environmental subsystems to ensure the success of project and initiative. It's critical to establish a set of representative indicator for sustainable development for all sustainable development key components. Consequently, these presentations provide a comprehensive overview of a sustainable urban water development between the year 2016 up to February 2023, while choosing and only selecting the Q1 and Q2 journal country rank, which while considering also the H index of above 100, which make this paper stronger than any other previous review. And the procedure was as follows. First, by distributing the publication, including analyzing the journals, then selecting the methods, and then to see the relationship between the water sustainabilities and the method that has been used, and then the managing sustainable urban water. The diversity in the scope and areas of the journals illustrate the multidisciplinary natures of urban water, including the hydrology, sustainability, ecological indicators, and many others. As shown in figure 1, the paper has been collapsed into 31 papers, which has been published in 22 journals. And the journals show that the Journal of Cleaner Production received the highest numbers of articles on the urban water and sustainability, followed by a Sustainable City, Society, and Prevention journal. This is because as also the part of the screening process, the reviewed paper were manually screened to ensure the relevance to the topics, and also to ensure that the themes identified in the literature reviews are relevant. We also conducted a content analysis to identify the conference papers, the book, and the conference reviews. The keywords has been searched individually on the Scopus to determine whether the results were upon agreed. The keywords are the urban water indicator, the methodologies in sustainable water use, effective urban water, water sustainability, and sustainable water indicators. Figure 2 shows the number of studies on urban water and its impact on sustainability has increased over the past few years. Moreover, after that, the analysis, after analyzing the publications and the journals, has been shown that the method has been used. Most of them are in the decision-making part. It also shows that the algorithms that fuzzies, AHP, TOPSes, and PSR were the most frequent used for evaluating the overall impact on the sustainabilities, which 47% of them has been used the fuzzy to establish the relationship between the urban water and sustainability implications, where 27% uses the AHP method for determining the determinants of decision making in regard to solve the intelligent decision problems, whereas the 20% of them use the TOPSes and the PCR for the capable of detecting and interacting the relationship between the indicator and the associated environment, and 6% of them has been used different method for indicator assessment and evaluating algorithms. For that, as mentioned earlier, most of the method has been used in the decision making, and the fuzzy was the fuzzy method or the fuzzy algorithm got the highest rank, as Lee uses the fuzzy logic to evaluate the urban water environmental treatment, public-private partnership, and sustainabilities, and also the fuzzy electrical one used by Chufi is used also to determine the outranking relationship among the alternative using of the indicators, where also the Oblonga uses the AHP, the second high-ranked method, to measure the urban water security using the integrated urban water security index. Moving further, the 6% of the other 6% of the publication were about the ecological footprint and different methods that will be in the upcoming slide. The ecological footprint could be wondering how it could be related to the water sustainability, but it is related, and it also can be used to analyze and evaluate the human dependence on the water resources and assess the sustainability of the local water supply. As Axon demonstrated, the use of the water footprint and the gray water footprint framework can be applied to measure the urban river pollution risk. And also XU assumed that the sustainable water use based on the water stress and gray water, which indicates the water use impact on the ecological environment. Moving at the artificial intelligence, it also could be somehow shocked that how the artificial intelligence related to the water system, or what is the relationship between them. In the economic development has severely affected the water use, partially the over-exploitations of the underground water. Thus, in order to maximize the water resources availability, several intelligence planning methods need to be studied. The artificial intelligence-based sustainability analysis can bring innovative solutions for today environmental problems and advance the future of water policies. And the artificial intelligence in water supplies has found a wide range of applications, including improving assets, management and repair, energy conservations, and reducing carbon and footprint. And also to predict the water demand, the artificial neural network are considered to be the most widely applied tool, as by using the ANN model to predict the short, medium, and long-term urban water demand. And also for the purpose for the predicting the medium-term urban water demand, it has been used by the combination of the AMPHIS, which is the artificial network method, and the combination of the ANN, which is the artificial neural network. Furthermore, of how to manage the sustainable urban water, inadequate water availability, the water losses, and or the waste due to the lack of the professional solutions and lack of public awareness and limited water recycling and reuses practice are among the major impediments in achieving the sustainable urban water management. The implementation of sustainable integrated urban water management strategies is relatively scarce, and raising the concern of implementing it practically significant and not yet adequately addressed globally. Thus, the Cellura proposed strategies to overcome the sustainable urban water management barriers through the multi-criteria decision-making, fuzzy decision-making, and trail evaluation laboratories, showing that the fuzzy decision-making trail evaluation laboratories approach can benefit the managers, governments, and agencies stakeholders. It showed that the decision making in the sustainable urban water, it has been widely used and it's necessary for any development or managing the sustainable urban water. To conclude that, it has been found that the fuzzy algorithm was the most used to assess the sustainable overall impact and manage sustainable water in urban areas. And the most water sustainability research is focused on decision making, as mentioned earlier, followed by the studies of the water footprint and the list of the artificial intelligence. That's why for the further research, the focus on the artificial intelligence would get a better in managing the sustainable urban